Howdy everyone, Pocho here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we're going to go over the changes to the Druids. I apologize for the delayness of this video. I had a weekend to myself, just wanted a little break, but we're going to get into it, and it's given a chance for the community to react to this post. I've gone through a lot of the comments. To be honest, a lot of it seems negative. They believe, or people believe, that this change to the Druids is a nerf over a buff, so we're here now to disprove or prove that point, whether these changes are good or bad. This video is going to be slightly long. I apologize, but I do want to go over everything and try and cover everything. And I will get to showcase the Druids in a scenario to see whether the changes are good or bad. But let's get into it. The first changes is Staff Strike. This is Cathbad's basic attack. Has a 15% chance to apply the buff that increases damage to the target for each druid or dragonkin. So that was the before the balance. The new version of the ability is now a 17% chance to apply that same debuff, to apply a buff that increases damage, or buff, sorry, to Druid, and they've removed Dragonkin and added Woodland of the Guardian Brotherhood. I've gone over these notes. The main change is that Dragonkin have been scrapped, Woodland Guardians have been brought in, which I believe is a good change. Woodland Guardians have the potential to be a good faction. They need a little boost. Is this the boost that they need? We will find out. Dragonkin, the Dragonkin, I kind of got it in terms of lore, and the two factions working together. Dragonkin are just so useless at the moment that I hope that they can be increased later on and have different factions work with them. I like this faction combination better than the Druids and the Dragonkin, to be honest. Nature's Touch, before rebalance restores all allies' health by 20% of their max health over 3 turns, reduces Trevor Out's Forest Forbid's ability cooldown by 2 turns, increases the speed of each Druid and Dragonkin by 15% for 3 turns. After the rebalance, Druids and Woodland Guardians receive a stack of 2 buffs instead of 3. No, 2 buffs, each restoring 20. Yeah, so it's a fancier way of saying this works for 2 turns now instead of 3. So 2 turns, they receive a little bit more health on each heal, but the heal overall has been reduced because now it's only 2 turns instead of 3. So you are missing out on... what is it? Are you losing 10% healing from this ability? To be honest, it's good and bad. Obviously, you're losing out on a bit more healing, but battles are so quick these days that a more effective healing sooner can be beneficial. You want to be able to heal through the bursts that a lot of teams have these days. So a 2 stack isn't necessarily the worst thing. You are losing out on a bit of healing though. A stack is consumed. Obviously, the rest of Cathbad's allies will receive half of this. Fair enough. So it is more specific now. They're focusing on Druids and Woodland Guardians with other allies reduced healing from the ability. Honestly, doesn't affect Cathbad all that much, because how often are you running Cathbad in a bloody Dwarf team or a Dark Elf team or Archon team? This change to Druids and Woodland Guardians isn't really a change. It's how he was run normally. Anyway, you've lost the Dragonkin though, so... whatever. Increases the speed of each Druid or hero of the Woodland Guardian Brotherhood by 20% for 3 turns. So a higher increase to speed, same duration of turns. It's annoying me, but they've put 3 as letters here and 3 as a number up there. 15% and a 20%. So that's increasing the ability's strength. Good. Arat's strength. Before rebalance, resurrect a random Druid or Dragonkin. You already know that this is being swapped for the Woodland Guardians. Resurrect Druid Woodland Guardians by 50%. So you're losing overall healing, but it's being applied to a better faction now. So a little bit of a buff, if you consider that a buff, the Woodland Guardians, with reduced healing overall. But so be it. Cathbad now has the Emerald Shroud passive ability. So this is the newest change to him. He's gained a passive ability, which... I would prefer him have a passive ability over a leadership ability. Essentially, this could have been a leadership ability. It's good it's not a leadership ability, because if they do ever add a leadership ability, it's going to increase the strength of the faction as a whole. Think of the Sandariel and the Gloriana leaderships. Sandariel is useless as a leader over Gloriana. They've both got leadership abilities. When have you ever used the Sandariel leadership ability? If Sandariel, even though she's the boss of the faction, I'm not worrying about that. If her leadership ability became a passive, the faction would become so much stronger. So People are upset. This is one of the main comments. People are upset the faction still has not got a leadership ability. It's not necessarily a bad thing. They can now add a leadership ability without reducing the effectiveness of Trevor Out. Think of it like this. If 2 leadership abilities are in a faction, one of them has the potential to be useless, making that whole skill useless. So I'm happy it's a passive and not a leadership ability, but it could have been easily a leadership ability, and then later on, the Guardian could have had a passive. But I assume, in terms of people who love the Druids, they're going to want the Guardian to have a solid leadership ability. So the changes to Mabe, Emerald Shadow. Mabe essentially is getting a nerf, even though Playcott are so adamant on not nerfing heroes. If you word it wisely enough, you can add a nerf, apparently. Essentially, she's become stronger with a Druid faction. She's become less effective as a universal hero, which is a bit disappointing because she's a great universal hero. And I don't believe Playcott should undermine universal heroes. Universal heroes are so important to the game. To have characters you can throw in any squad you want, because it just changes the game a little bit. I don't like restricting heroes to certain factions. By all means, have faction-based teams. Just don't have every hero of a faction relying on the faction. Have 1 or 2 heroes per faction being universal. I would be happy with that personally. Mabe is that universal hero. But if they kept her the way she is, she would become an absolute weapon. And she is a weapon now, but think of her right now as Thanos. If she was to remain the same and put in the Druid faction team now, I believe she would have been Thanos, but with the Infinity Gauntlet. Old Druids, yeah, so she's lost 20% speed, which is lowering her effective as a universal hero, and every time a slow is applied, or a turn skip, she's gaining a little bit more speed. So next up is the Trevor Out changes ability change Tree Punch before rebalance with a 30% chance a random druid besides himself could use their abilities 1 turn earlier. It's a 33% chance now, very small increase. A random druid besides himself or woodland guardian, so that's the main buff. They've added the another faction, or rebalance as they want to say, can use their abilities. So they've added another faction, good, makes him slightly more usable. Forest forbids. Before rebalance, increases armor by 200% and magic resistance by 400% for enemies and allied druids for 2 turns. This is really confusing to me, because if you look into the game, apart from the Soothsayer Bomb, which I believe is physical damage, people always ask me, why don't you... actually not the point. Okay, so I wish these stats would change. I feel like so much more damage comes from melee abilities over magic abilities that the armor should be the one bumped up, not magic resistance. Unless magic resistance also increases the chance of fortifying. I don't think it does. Fortifying abilities. Druids for 2 turns. The rest of the allies receive only half of the power of this effect. After their rebalance, applies a stack of 4 buffs on himself and allied druids and woodland guardians. Each stack increases his armor by 50% and magic resistance by 50%. At the start of each turn, 1 stack on the buff is removed. The rest of the allies will receive. That's interesting. I didn't notice this the first time. So I will need to double check it. Obviously, I don't think I will actually be able to check it in this video and give you the information. That's the whole point of this video. Does this mean that his stacks do not dissipate upon being hit? A lot of armor increases and magic resist increases in the game remain until the person is hit and then the stack is removed. So it's if you need to be hit 4 times. This is saying that the stacks remain until his turn comes. So does he have 4 turns of this buff? Or is it also reduced by hit? I will need to look into that. That is important. Roots of Peace. If this is how it works, and it is taken away at the start of every turn, then I believe this is a big buff. And I really enjoy this. If, however, he loses a stack upon each turn and upon each hit, then that's a shitty change. And that needs to be fixed in one way or the other. I only just noticed that. So if it does happen the shitty way, I will hit up Playcott and be like, change it! Now, Roots of Peace. Before rebalance, impose the effect of damage over time on all enemies, acting for as many turns as there were negative effects on the target at the same time of the attack. After rebalance, if Cathbad is an ally, then the speed of enemies will decrease by another 30%. That's pretty nice, decreasing speed. And because he's so quick now, you have to ask yourself, do you want to use this ability first, or do you want to use the taunt first? Tree Punch. Which one is the taunt? Is it that one? I haven't read taunt once in his abilities. Angry Hive. Before rebalance, with a 70% chance, reduced the outgoing damage of all targets by 25% and their critical hit chance by 30% for 2 turns. After rebalance, applies the effects of damage over time to all enemies for 2 turns, an additional 1 turn for each negative effect imposed on them. This damage over time effect deals 160% of Trevor Out's base damage. It reduces the outgoing damage of all enemies by 30% for 3 turns. So this doesn't have with a 70% chance. This is now a 100% chance, excluding fortifies, so that's nice. Reduces the chance of enemies performing critical hit to 0 for 3 turns. Applies. This is nice. I like this. FU critical hits and FU damage. This is a big damage mitigation ability now. I think this is a buff. Am I missing something? That seems like a pretty decent buff to that ability. Which ability taunts? Give me a moment. So, I knew it was. It's just not written here. I assume it's because they're not changing anything. But Forest Forbids is the taunt ability, of course. And that is going to be affected by Cathbad to reduce the cooldown of that ability. So it's up to you whether you want to use Roots of the Peace or Forest Forbids. I think you can safely use Roots of Peace because you also will most likely be running Pride in this team, which means that Pride, you can rely on his taunt while you use Trevor Out as a massive setup character. You set up your debuffs, your slows, and then you bring in the backup taunt with the armor increase. Up to you how you want to play it. There is no official way of playing this team yet. It's all speculation at the moment. One other thing I did notice in the comments was you've added all these changes, but Trevor Out isn't part of the Woodland Guardian faction, and I hope they do not change it. But on the test server, he has been added to the Woodland Guardian, which makes complete sense. If they didn't add him to the Woodland Guardian, what's the point of all the changes? He's not even affecting himself, really. Oh, he is a druid, I guess, but he needs to be part of the Woodland Guardians, because if they're going to work with the Woodland Guardians need to work with him as well. So any other abilities that affect not just druids, but Woodland Guardians, he will benefit from as well, which needs to happen. You can't just half-ass it. So, a lot of interesting changes. Like I said, most of the comments are negative. They believe this is a big old nerf to the druids over what should be a buff. So how effective is it? Let's jump into a battle and we will see for ourselves. So I just wanted to state before we jump into a little test battle that this ability works exactly how it is worded, which is awesome. I think this is an amazing change. The 4 stacks of armor resistance and magic resistance, or the 4 stacks of armor and magic resistance, apply to your character and do not decrease per hit. It decreases per turn, which is amazing for your heroes. It means AoE effects aren't going to slowly whittle down the stacks. You are going to be able to have 4 turns per character of mitigation to damage, which is a huge, especially when you have enemies focusing one target. That stack normally those attacks would normally get rid of 4 stacks pretty quickly. However, having it last 4 turns instead of 4 hits is a tremendous boost to this character's usability and the capability it has of increasing your defenses for your team. So really good change. Super happy with this one. But without talking about it anymore, let's jump into the battle and see how these bad boys play out. Okay, so going into battle now, it's important to note that with this team, Woodland Guardians being 5 characters strong now, Pride and Stealthy have the full effect of their abilities. There's no 20%, 40%, 60% reliant on just the 3 Woodland Guardians that were in the game. You now have full effect, making this team as strong as possible. Now, we have 4 enemies on the team. Loki are obviously not affected at the beginning. That's fine. But if we use our Roots of the Peace, as you can see, because there is 4 enemies that cannot hide, they will be attacked by Stealthy, except for Leo, who can't be attacked by support attacks. Our first target is going to be the Lokia. We're going to use our... I'm not going to go over the abilities. I will do a proper guide video when these characters are released. We're going to heal. The heal increases the speed of Stealthy, which increases her damage output. Every time Pride's turn comes around, he's going to apply the Cannot Hide debuff. We're going to use our Angry Hive, because why not? Get some dots on the enemy, taking a bit of damage on our Cathbad. Doesn't matter. He's going to get a lot of health back. Block buffs on the enemy. And we are hopefully going to take out the Loki. I'm just going to auto attack here. Take him out. Remember, because he has the debuff on him that can't apply buffs, we bypass the Azariel Immortality. We are going to go ahead and take out Drake next, since he is so close to dying anyway. We should be able to rip through him. And because he can't hide, every attack we do against him, our friend Stealthy is going to do a support attack. There we go. And Stealthy takes him out. Our next target is going to be Lael. I do want to take Lael out. Unfortunately, we are not able to attack her. Let's go ahead and attack. I haven't used a taunt on Trevor Out yet. Can we take out... There we go. Take out Azariel. She dies. No worries. Then we are forced to attack Naja at this point. We are going to... Sure, let's taunt now. We probably didn't have to. I really, really would like to take out the Lael. Can we attack her? Yeah, we can attack her. We're going to use AoE though, do a lot of damage on her, take her out. That was by Tricky. Tricky just did a lot of damage for some reason. And with Naja being left on the field, we're going to heal up and end this battle, hopefully, on full HP. I don't really want to apply debuffs at this point because Naja heals off debuffs, but we are in a pretty good position right now. Bugger it, let's just do it. Hopefully we can take her out. There! Obviously we were fighting a team. This team has been designed, by the looks of it, to counter. I don't think it's just Dark Elves. I think this team is going to do quite well against teams that apply debuffs, but we now have a team that, you know, before this patch was completely useless. I don't think you could have used this team in any significant way except for a shitty Clan Wars defense team. Now you have another option, another team you can use to fight a Dark Elf squad and potentially other squads. I'm obviously going to do proper guide videos when this faction is properly released into the game. This was just to showcase the changes and are they good. They may not be as effective as we wanted them to be, but as long as the team is useful in some category, which is good. We can't have it useful in every category. We can't have this team beating every other team in the game. Unlike the Barbarian buff, for example, the Barbarian buff was overwhelming. I think this change is good. And it has the potential to be stronger. If they add a leadership ability later on the game, it can keep this team relevant without making it stupidly strong. So I see a lot of comments saying that this team or this isn't a buff, it's a nerf. Just from what I've seen so far, and my opinion can change, I believe that this is what a buff should look like. It has brought them to a stage they can be used. It's brought them to a stage where they're not destroying every team in the game or have the potential to destroy every team in the game. They are in a healthy spot. And I think this is the look Playcott should have on every faction. If there is a faction out there that can destroy every team in some way, then that team needs to be looked at. If there's a team like this that specializes against a certain team, then that's the right path I think they should be taking. So the rebalance, I think this is good for all the people that are writing negative comments. By all means, I hope this has changed your mind in some way or given a different view to you. And if you're still not satisfied, if you're still not satisfied, by all means, write below why you are not satisfied. I'd love to read it. Part of the reasons I do these videos is because of people who are not satisfied. So I can either shine a different light or show a different side to something that they may not have seen yet. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied. I wouldn't say I'm happy. I'm satisfied with the change to the druids. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the length of this video. I feel like there was a lot to cover because there is a lot of changes, to be honest. It may not seem like it, but it did fundamentally change 2 factions in the game. Thank you for watching wherever you are in the world. Until next time, please take care of yourself.